the moment everything falls apart. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to have an almost supernatural ability to stay calm when everything around them is falling apart? While others panic, freeze, or spiral into anxiety, these individuals maintain a clear head and steady hands. They're the ones who take charge during emergencies, who think clearly under pressure, who somehow find solutions when everyone else sees only problems. But here's what most people don't realize: this ability isn't something they were born with. It's not a personality trait handed down through genetics. These people learn to stay calm during chaos because at some point in their lives, they had no other choice. They were thrown into situations so overwhelming, so intense, that their survival depended on keeping it together. And that experience changed them forever. Today, we're going to explore the hidden story behind this remarkable ability. Because understanding how these people develop their calmness isn't just fascinating, it might help you develop this skill yourself when life inevitably throws chaos your way. What chaos does to the human brain. When chaos erupts, whether it's a sudden crisis, a traumatic event, or an overwhelming situation, our brain doesn't respond with logic. Instead, it triggers what psychologists call the fight, flight, or freeze response. This is an ancient survival mechanism that served our ancestors well when facing physical threats like predators. Here's what happens in those critical seconds: the amygdala, your brain's alarm system, detects danger and floods your body with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart races, your breathing quickens, your muscles tense up. Blood flow actually decreases to your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thinking and decision-making. This is why people often say they couldn't think straight during a crisis. For most people, this response is overwhelming. They panic, they make impulsive decisions, or they freeze completely. But people who stay calm during chaos have trained their brains to respond differently. They've developed what neuroscientists call stress inoculation. Their nervous system has learned through repeated exposure that panic doesn't help, and that staying calm actually increases survival chances. But here's the crucial part: this training doesn't come from reading books or taking courses. It comes from real experience, often painful experience. The hard lessons that build unshakable calm. The people who stay calm during chaos usually share something in common: they've been through their own personal hell. Maybe they grew up in an unstable home where they learned early that losing control only made things worse. Maybe they survived a serious accident, a medical emergency, or a natural disaster. Maybe they served in the military, worked as first responders, or faced a life-threatening illness. What these experiences have in common is this: they forced these individuals to confront their worst fears while still needing to function. There was no option to fall apart, no luxury of having someone else handle everything. They had to keep their children safe while their own world crumbled. They had to make life-or-death decisions with incomplete information. They had to push through pain, fear, and uncertainty because giving up simply wasn't an option. Take Sarah, for example, a nurse who now works in emergency medicine. She didn't choose this calm demeanor. She developed it after her younger brother nearly drowned when she was 16. While others panicked and screamed, Sarah jumped in the water, pulled him out, and performed CPR she'd learned in school. In those terrifying minutes, something clicked: panicking would have killed him. Staying calm saved his life. That experience rewired her brain. Years later, when she faces medical emergencies at work, that same calm descends over her. Not because she doesn't feel fear, she does. But because she learned the hard way that chaos demands clarity, not panic. How trauma becomes strength. Psychologists have a term for what happens when people emerge stronger from difficult experiences: post-traumatic growth. It's the idea that trauma, while painful, can actually lead to positive psychological changes when processed correctly. People who develop this unshakable calm typically go through several mental shifts. First, they accept that they can't control everything. This sounds simple, but it's profound. When you realize that chaos is sometimes inevitable, you stop wasting energy trying to prevent the unpreventable. Instead, you focus on what you can control: your response. Second, they develop what psychologists call an internal locus of control. They believe that their actions matter, that their choices have consequences, and that they have agency even in difficult situations. This isn't about having power over external events, it's about having power over yourself. Third, they've experienced evidence that they can survive hard things. This isn't abstract confidence, it's concrete proof. They've been through the fire and came out the other side. Their brain has learned, we survived that, we can survive this. Fourth, and perhaps most importantly, they've learned to separate feelings from actions. They feel the fear, the stress, the anxiety, but they don't let those feelings dictate their behavior. It's like they've created a small space between the emotion and the response, and in that space, they can choose how to act. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, and it's rarely pleasant. But it's real, and it's remarkably consistent across different types of traumatic experiences. The science of building calm without crisis. The good news is that you don't need to experience severe trauma to develop the ability to stay calm during chaos. Psychologists have identified specific practices that can train your nervous system to respond more calmly to stress. First is gradual exposure to manageable stress. This is the principle behind stress inoculation training, used by military units and first responders. By repeatedly exposing yourself to controlled stressful situations, whether that's public speaking, cold water immersion, or challenging physical exercise, you teach your brain that stress isn't always dangerous. You expand your window of tolerance. Second is practicing emotional regulation techniques before you need them. Techniques like deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, and mindfulness meditation actually change your brain's structure over time. Studies show that regular meditation increases gray matter in the prefrontal cortex and reduces activity in the amygdala. In other words, it strengthens the rational part of your brain while calming the alarm system. Third is mental rehearsal. Athletes and performers have used this for decades. Vividly imagining yourself staying calm during a stressful situation actually creates neural pathways similar to real experience. When the actual situation arrives, your brain has a template to follow. Fourth is building what researchers call psychological flexibility, the ability to stay present with uncomfortable thoughts and feelings without being controlled by them. This comes from accepting that discomfort is part of life rather than something that needs to be immediately fixed or avoided. The daily habits of unshakable people. People who stay calm during chaos don't just rely on past experiences or occasional training. They maintain specific daily practices that keep their nervous system regulated and their mind sharp. They prioritize sleep religiously. This isn't about luxury, it's about survival. Sleep deprivation severely impairs the prefrontal cortex's ability to regulate the amygdala. When you're sleep deprived, you're far more likely to panic under pressure because your brain's rational control center is essentially offline. They maintain physical fitness. Exercise is one of the most powerful tools for regulating the nervous system. It teaches your body to experience stress, elevated heart rate, heavy breathing, in a controlled context and then return to baseline. This trains the exact mechanism you need during real chaos. They practice saying no to unnecessary stress. This might seem counterintuitive, shouldn't they be toughening themselves up? But here's the key, they conserve their stress response for when it truly matters. They don't burn out their nervous system on minor daily irritations. They maintain strong support systems. Contrary to the lone wolf stereotype, people who handle chaos well typically have solid relationships they can rely on. They know they don't have to face everything alone, which paradoxically makes them more capable when they do face things alone. They also practice what psychologists call cognitive reappraisal, the habit of reframing situations before reacting. Instead of, "this is a disaster," they think, "this is a challenge I can work through." This isn't toxic positivity, it's a deliberate practice that shifts brain activity from the fear center to the problem-solving center. Inside the mind during crisis. When chaos actually erupts, calm people follow a remarkably consistent internal process, often without consciously realizing it. First, they pause, even if just for a breath. This micropause interrupts the automatic panic response and engages the prefrontal cortex. It's the difference between reacting and responding. Second, they assess the situation objectively. What's actually happening right now, as opposed to what they're afraid might happen. They separate facts from fears. This grounds them in reality rather than catastrophic imagination. Third, they identify what they can control and what they can't. They don't waste precious mental energy on things outside their influence. Instead, they immediately focus on their available options and possible actions. Fourth, they take the next right step, even if it's small. They don't need to solve the entire problem at once. They just need to move forward incrementally. This creates momentum and reinforces their sense of agency. Throughout this process, they practice self-compassion rather than self-criticism. Their internal dialogue isn't, "Why am I feeling scared?" but rather, "It makes sense that I'm feeling scared, and I can handle this anyway." They also accept uncertainty. Unlike people who panic because they need to know how everything will turn out, calm people can tolerate ambiguity. They've learned that you often have to take action before you have all the answers, and that's okay. Perhaps most importantly, they stay present. They don't get lost in regrets about the past or anxiety about the future. They remain focused on this moment, this decision, this action. Your path to calm in the storm. Here's the truth, you already have the capacity to stay calm during chaos. It's built into your nervous system, your brain structure, your human inheritance. The question isn't whether you can develop this ability, it's whether you're willing to do the work. Start small. Don't wait for a major crisis to practice staying calm. Practice with minor stresses first. When you're stuck in traffic, when you receive unexpected bad news, when plans fall apart, these are your training grounds. Notice your physical response. Take that breath. Engage your thinking brain before reacting. Build resilience through regular practices. Meditation, exercise, adequate sleep, these aren't optional luxuries. They're foundational tools that literally reshape your nervous system's response to stress. Seek out manageable challenges. Say yes to things that make you slightly uncomfortable. Give that presentation. Have that difficult conversation. Try that new skill. Each time you handle discomfort without falling apart, you're expanding your capacity for calm. Learn from people who've been through hard things. Listen to their stories not with pity, but with attention. What patterns do you notice in how they handled their challenges? What lessons can you extract? And remember this, the goal isn't to never feel fear, stress, or anxiety during chaos. The goal is to feel those things and function anyway. The calm you're seeking isn't the absence of emotion, it's the presence of choice. People who stay calm during chaos learn this the hard way, yes. But that doesn't mean you have to wait for tragedy to develop this skill. You can choose to train yourself now, on your terms, building the capacity that might one day save your life or someone else's. Because when chaos comes, and it will come, the question won't be whether you're scared. The question will be, what will you do with that fear? Will you let it control you, or will you stay calm in the storm? The ability to stay calm during chaos isn't a superpower, it's a skill forged through experience, training, and deliberate practice. Those who possess it didn't choose their difficult experiences, but they chose how to grow from them. They learned that panic helps nothing, that control is often an illusion, and that the only reliable thing they can control is their own response. The beautiful truth is that you don't need to wait for tragedy to develop this capacity. Every small stress you handle with awareness, every breath you take before reacting, every challenge you face with courage, all of it is building your ability to stand steady when the ground beneath you shakes. Start today. Because the chaos isn't coming, it's already here, woven into the fabric of life. The only question is, when it arrives in full force, will you be ready?